Metal Fatigue is a game that's not talked about too often. It came out in May of 2000, so we're just past the 20th anniversary now. It was also fairly difficult to get this one running properly. However, in 2018 the game was re-released by Nightdive Studios, and it's been pretty fixed up. For the most part anyway. We still have to fix some things up, just like we used to. The in-game settings can't fix up the aspect ratio or the resolution, so you have to go online, and I'm just kidding. The re-release has a configuration tool right in the game directory, so that solves everything for now. So let's move right into the game intro.
Archive 110763. Corporation exploration of nearby systems discovered no life forms, only the ruins of long-extinct civilizations and the technological artifacts of their conquerors, the Hedoth. Humanity adopted these, developing the Hedoth-based systems, including Combots and Overseers. Earth's three largest corporations, Rimtech, Milagro, and Europa Limited, formed an alliance to seek out these alien technologies. Eventually, their fleets discovered the Epsilon Andromeda system and the extensive Hedoth sites on 3 of its planets. Numerous survey teams were dispatched in the hope of finding the ultimate prize, functional Hedoth technology. Such a discovery would mean wealth and power beyond comprehension. And, as greed replaced the desire for cooperation, the alliance unraveled.
It's a simple premise. The main story revolves around the drama between 3 estranged brothers. They were all members of the unfortunately named Rimtech. Each of them is a combat robot pilot, or Combot. Usually they only find trace stuff, but today is different, because today the middle Rimtech brother presses down just a little too hard and gets everyone into deep shit. An alien combat part is discovered and they fight over which faction it should go to. This leads to the brothers being separated into the different factions. The oldest stays in Rimtech. I'm still not sure what Rimtech's all about, but I think they're supposed to be good. Good on the giant space company scale at least. The youngest goes to Milagro. They're the bright red, super militarized warmongers of the system. They're deadly at short range, using fast-firing weapons like Gatling guns. The middle brother went to Europa. They're very purple and very obsessed with the aliens. They even have a mysterious religion built around them, and they favor energy weapons and wait. Okay, so does this sound remarkably familiar? This is PlanetSide. The entire setup, the factions, it is strikingly familiar. The thing is, PlanetSide comes out 3 years after Metal Fatigue did. I did look around to try and find an official connection or maybe people who worked on both games, but I couldn't find any. So that's pretty weird. Anyway, each brother has their own campaign and they're supposed to be played in order, so I'm not going to go against that. But before I give you the full taste of Rimtech, veteran players may notice something. Let's start the campaign. Okay, a lot of you are still scratching your heads, but I'll get into it. It's time to talk about the presentation. Metal Fatigue is one of the earlier 3D RTS games. There had been a few others in the years before, but we're still solidly in the figuring it out stage. So that being said, a lot of this game is pretty damn ugly. There's not a lot of variety when it comes to environment visuals. You might be wondering why the game is in 3D at all. But there are interesting reasons for it, but that's more of a gameplay thing, so I'll hold off for now. The worst part by far is the UI. Instead of having unit stats and all that stuff in a panel on the bottom right, it's instead all the way down the left. Games like Total Annihilation did this too, but they'd at least put it on the same side of the screen as the panels. In Metal Fatigue, to make a building, you look up to the right, but then like down to the left to see the cost of it, and it's awkward to use. Then when I was looking up screenshots, I noticed that the panel's on the other side. Sure enough, there was an option to move it over. So that was my bad, but why was it the default? Panels were moving to the right in the genre, but I'm not sure. Even with that, the game still has a lot of issues in this front. Example, you can start building clicking on one worker, but if you grab a bunch of them at once, then you can't. A lot of little mundane annoyances like that. The text is also hard to read, which was apparently a problem back then too. I said the UI is the worst part, but it's not horrible, it was just being done better even back then. All the factions have the same vehicle types, but they did differentiate them a little bit, including visually. Like you have the Milagro tanks that are angular, blocky, and slow, compared to Europa tanks that are strangely shaped, anti-gravity, and very quick. But the real stars of the game are the Combots. They're custom built and each faction has their own unique parts, and you unlock more through the campaign. Different legs, arms, and torsos all look unique, and each faction does have a lot to choose from. They can specialize in ranged or melee combat, or you could give them multiple weapon systems. They're really good 3D models for this era, but best of all is the animation. When these mechs fight, they fight. This alone justifies it being 3D. The spectacle of these mech fights feed the dark, primal instincts that live in all of our hearts. These fights are worth watching rather than managing a fight somewhere else, too. With a well-placed shot or a slash, sometimes parts will fly off the Combots. Combots are advanced war machines and can reapply them pretty easily, but you can take your enemy's parts too. So being around to take an enemy's buzzsaw and kill him with it is important. Also keep in mind these mechs have a crew of people and they'll eject out when their mech goes down. Getting back to their base means they might crew another robot, so you need to give them the 6-story pile driver. A faction already had a lot of parts, but combat fields of battle can become graveyards of wealth and power. Your workers can retrieve them and bring them back to your base for reapplication or research. Slap the parts you salvaged back on your own mechs or manufacture them yourself. A faction in itself already had a good amount of variety, but now it can transcend that. The enemy AI is smart enough to scavenge your parts too, so it's not a one-way deal. So there's some visual greatness, but what about the audio?
Combat construction possible. Battle on surface. Vehicle complete. Battle on surface. Underground.
I mean, I'd say it's early 2000s RTS soundscape. I thought a lot of the music was fairly generic, kind of like a knockoff Command & Conquer, but there was more to it. I did like the main theme of the game. So I was disappointed when so much of the music was a fairly generic rock score.
Battle on surface.
Once again, it's not bad, it's just something I've heard better before. The Rimtech and Milagro campaigns were all like this, but then I got to the Naropa one and something changed.
Vehicle complete. Combat part completed.
This is different. Why is the music different? Well, the GOG version included about 20 tracks. I look online for a playlist, and yeah, there's about 20 tracks. So I figured it was a weird decision, but then I double-checked later. Rimtech has other music. Rimtech was using Milagro music the entire time. Here's what their music is supposed to sound like.
Completed. Combat part completed. Combat part completed.
Rimtech has an entire orchestral score, 10 tracks, which are just not in the game. This wasn't cut or anything, this was in the original version. Both the Steam and GOG versions are like this. The ball is fully in Nightdive's court in this one, and it's been dropped pretty hard. I appreciate the work Nightdive did getting it to run and fixing up bugs, but a third of the soundtrack is just gone. The re-release was 2 years ago and it's still like this. Looking on forums, there were people making a stink about this, but apparently not enough to make a change worthwhile. I don't know what to say, really. If the abandonware version of a game has features that the one people pay for doesn't, then something's wrong. This is still the more stable version and a lot better to play, but I don't like having that kind of drawback. So the audio's okay with a missing soundtrack out of 10. What's really sad is this isn't even the worst case I know of. Quake 2 on Steam has no music. I'll never understand how this kind of thing happens.
Vehicle complete. Battle on surface.
And there goes the arm. Still have another one! When it comes to the gameplay, the Combots aren't the only unique part of Metal Fatigue. Sure, the maps are all drab and look very, very similar to each other, but they have layers. Each map is really a stack of 3. You have the underground layer, your regular surface layer, and then above that the orbital or sky layer. 3 separate warfronts, and they have some interconnectivity. In the orbital layer, you can build on asteroids. Solar panels built up here will collect a lot more energy than on the ground. The hovering sky trucks can make it between the asteroids, but other than that, you need an air force. Controlling space means controlling free passive income. There are only 2 air units, a fighter and a bomber. They can be built in the sky or on the surface and freely travel between both. A detail I thought was cool is that if an air unit dies up in the orbital layer, they'll crash down through it. So an orbital battle can mean jets and bombers crashing down to the surface and damaging buildings. Pretty neat. The underground layer can be expanded out through drill trucks. They build elevators that get down or access the surface again. It's usually a good idea to have some defenses down there immediately, because if you don't build, the enemy will. It's quite common for them to tunnel into your house and explode up in a horde of vehicles. There's energy lava down there, like on the surface, and that's it. Well, I take that back, there's the railgun that can shoot between the layers, and if you don't have point defense, you're in for a really bad time. The layers don't have enough going on. Sure, there are all kinds of cool flying mech builds you can make. They're better than regular air units because they don't die in a hit or two from a turret. So the sky is mainly robot fights just like the surface. Now, Combots can't go underground, only vehicles can. And vehicles are horrendous. Tanks will die to defense turrets in droves, and artillery is supposed to counter them. Artillery is slow to move, slow to build, and still horribly weak compared to a robot. But for an underground attack, it's the best thing you have. Missile cars can shoot ground targets and targets in the air, but robots do that too. Those are all the damage-dealing ground units. There's also a truck that kills itself to temporarily stun a Combot. So the vehicles are incredibly limited and just terrible against a giant robot. A single Combot can wipe out entire divisions of your vehicles easily, even if the cost is way more. Even turrets that easily kill vehicles struggle to damage a Combot. One can easily walk into a base and just start obliterating everything. Because the truth is, this is the robot fight game. The units around it are so generic and uninteresting that they seem like an afterthought. It only takes playing one fight in the No Robots Allowed underground layer to understand this. You effectively have tanks and artillery. Missiles aren't worth it and might hit the terrain, and yeah, that's a thing that happens. The vehicle pathfinding can get really bad on occasion. It's not uncommon to find someone just flat out stuck. It's a little surprised these problems are barely seen in the giant robots because the vehicles are designed to be munched by them. The units being implemented outside the robots was lacking, and ultimately the layer system doesn't feel like much more than a gimmick. It's a really interesting idea, there's just not enough units and features here to support it properly. In practice, it means in skirmish maps you scout across the entire map trying to find the very last holdouts of the enemy. They'll pop out of the ground, start building, and teleport back up to the sky, and it's a mess. To its credit, I have seen the AI surrender in campaign battles. In skirmish, they seem a lot more willing to fight to the last man. Speaking of the campaign, how about the story? Is there anything out there or special about it?
Although war remained undeclared, it was an unacknowledged reality. Europa had quietly suffered Milagro raids in the past, but no longer. To Europa, the Cobb family of Milagro were infidels, using Hedoth technology in blasphemous ways.
No, not really. Gameplay-wise, you can upgrade combat crews between missions, so you have incentive to do little bonus missions to get better pilots, but that's really about it. You don't have trash-talking campaign enemies or really anything that compelling. At the very least, each campaign does have a short cutscene at the end, so there is something to work towards. But for me, they're really not worth it. I wouldn't call it a bad game, it's a fairly average RTS for the era. It is notable for the interesting ideas that it had and some RTS games that evolve them in different ways. Metal Fatigue is like a missing link between Total Annihilation and Supreme Commander, but it didn't actually evolve into Supreme Commander, it became like a strange offshoot orangutan or something. What's sad is I think this game was one really good expansion away from being a classic. If you add a few units to each faction, add some more interactivity between the layers, and fix some things up, yeah, this could have been something really special. This game is like being back home and finding an old box of toys in your attic, or maybe not even your toys. Like, oh man, Transformers, I wish I had these to play with as a kid. There is that awesome factor of having giant fighting robots, but everything around it isn't enough to carry it. I still like the ambition there was. So if you like this era of games or just want to play a bizarro Total Annihilation sequel, I could give it a light recommend, if you get it cheap. I've once again contacted the Polish Information Network so you could get it for less than $2 on GOG for a while. Then I got to re-render the video today because they're just giving away Total Annihilation for free, so I'm gonna link that too because it's a much better game, but damn, I'm just torpedoing my own video. I had a lot of people asking me to make a video on this one saying that it was a childhood game of theirs, but they weren't sure it held up so well. I can definitely confirm that now. Not horrible, not great, it's in that perfect awkward, area. So there'll be a much different mech game next time around. A pretty good one. A great one. I'll see you then. Seriously, I don't care if it's just an okay game, the fact the music is just missing, that's pretty messed up. This won't be the last game from that developer that I cover. Home Alone 1 or 2? Finally the real questions. Home Alone 1 is a better movie. 2 uncreatively recycles a lot from the first movie, and some is really awkwardly shoved in because the first movie had it. But for me, I still enjoy 2 more because you see Kevin turn to Sun Tzu. Then Tim Curry. Will you be playing the new Call of Cthulhu game this Halloween? I assume you mean the video game, and that video is coming, possibly earlier than Halloween. It just has terrible, terrible post-processing effects. So I keep putting it off because I'm trying to find a way to make it not look so horribly ugly. How do you pick the games to cover, and will there be more mod videos? Picking is pretty easy actually. I go, what am I in the mood to play? I check the list of stuff that people have suggested, and I pick off from there. People get suggestions in, I'm not forced to play anything, everybody wins. As for mod videos, those are coming back. And when I say those, I mean the one I did. They're gonna come back! I promise! Okay, we're at the end.
Rimtech continued to sue for peace, and Europa
This is like, what if Siri narrated the Animatrix?